I want to talk about desperation, right? The act of being desperate. And specifically in the case of desperation, I want to explore how it leaves a person vulnerable. And what exactly in regards to being vulnerable? Well, you're really settling, right? If you're desperate for something, if you're desperate for someone, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like you're willing to do absolutely anything required to get it, right? What does that do? It voids healthy boundaries. So then, therefore, basically what you're saying is that you are willing to do or go through anything required to get what it is that you want. I've had a lot of experience with this, unfortunately. And here I am taking a moment of vulnerability to be honest about this and transparent. Um, Desperation is not a healthy energy. Um, and I'm not here to shame or to guilt anyone on any of this stuff. That's not what my intention is at all. But what I am here to do is to talk about desperation and what can happen to a person when they basically live and vibrate inside of desperation and desperate energy, right? Maybe you want something, right? And maybe for some reason you believe that it is like so unattainable that you have to do some level of, I don't know, sacrifice, self sacrifice in order to get it. Rather than, of course, just deploying healthy boundaries, which can be very challenging, right? A lot of people believe that if they, set healthy boundaries with people, then people are going to leave. And it's not that it's untrue, right? Some people don't like healthy boundaries. Some people like to, take advantage of you. They like to be able to stick their fucking hands into your stuff whenever the fuck they want to, right? And that's just not acceptable. That's just not healthy, right? But if you are desperate for something, if you're desperate for someone, right? It's likely that the way that you communicate yourself is, I will do absolutely anything required to get what I want. So, I mean, with that, you're basically being like, all right, well, this person doesn't have healthy boundaries. Maybe this person doesn't even have boundaries altogether. That's possible. It's possible for a person to actually not have boundaries. And that goes back to an unhealthy and a lacking of ego development. And so, therefore, there's really nothing that they won't do to get what it is that they want. But that's more so an extreme case. I'm not really getting into that. What I'm talking about is, when you really want something, when you want it so badly that at this point you're fucking desperate for it, what does that leave you vulnerable to? That leaves you vulnerable to abuse and mistreatment. It leaves you vulnerable to getting less than what it is that you actually initially intended, desired, wanted, right? Like, for instance, if you are desperate for a relationship, right? If you're desperate for a job, if you're desperate for, it doesn't matter whatever it is, just insert X, right? If you're desperate for something, the likelihood that you're going to get the whole fucking pie in comparison to crumbs, right? We're talking about the difference between the real fucking healthy thing, the whole pie, and crumbs, which would be another way of saying intermittent, right? Like, so say for instance, if it's a relationship, right, and you're just fucking desperate, right, you're probably not doing the groundwork to figure out if this person is actually a healthy individual and has healthy boundaries, and there's the possibility that you could move forward with a healthy and fulfilling life shared with them, right? No. Somebody who actually has healthy boundaries, a healthy personality, is looking for a meaningful and fulfilling, relationship with somebody, they don't have desperate energy, right? Desperate energy settles for anything and everything, right? That's why abuse is so tolerated for people that are desperate, because they just want it. You know? They just want it. They're willing to settle. They're willing to, crumbs, 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 rather than consistency, right? Now, the challenging thing is that there are people out there that have learned that love is about crumbs. It's about intermittent affection, and it's given and then it's taken back, and then you've got to do something really fucking crazy to get it back, to get it given back, right? I'm not going to call that not love. I want to so badly, but what I am going to call that is unhealthy, right? And this is the kind of thing that, leaves somebody in a place of vulnerability through their energy of desperation. That's just the reality of it, right? You can apply the same fucking thing to a job. You can apply the same fucking thing to, let's say, for instance, somebody's desperate for money, right? Like really, ridiculously desperate for money, right? That leaves them vulnerable to anything and everything, right? Oh, what are you willing to do for money? Oh, I'll do anything. I'll do absolutely anything, right? And, I mean, I'm not here... Again, this is not about shaming anybody. You can do whatever the fuck you want. That's just the reality of it. But if you're desperate for money and somebody influences you to do something that would lead to you committing a crime, that places you in a position of vulnerability, right? Which then, with that entire thing, places you in jeopardy and danger and everything. And that's why, I'm so fascinated, because I've been sitting with desperation for a while. Not in regards to, me being desperate. I have been, in the past, in different times throughout my life, desperate. And I'm just, really real, if you are desperate, you are going to settle. And when I say that, I don't mean, settling down with somebody and starting a family and having a wonderful life. No. I mean settling for bare minimum. Bare minimum's right here. Right? Or maybe even, right here. Yeah, we'll set it as the foundation, right? People that are desperate, they settle for less than that. Right? It's more so like an oddball. It's unpredictable. You never know what it is that's going to happen, because you're settling for such low quality because you're desperate. Right? And that ain't fun for anybody. It really isn't. I mean, for people that are used to that dynamic and that's just comfortable to them and that's familiar to them, this, that, and the other, it's a different story and everything, right? It doesn't change the fact that it's not healthy, right? If you are desperate for something, you're likely going to tolerate anything for it to be a reality for you. And that's just the reality of it. Imagine being so desperate for a relationship, for instance. And what ends up happening is that the desperation leads you to a place of vulnerability where you are being subject to manipulation. Right? That's not healthy. It's really not. And so really the moral of this is that, I mean, I understand that some situations out there are extreme and everything, but desperation is just not a fun place to live in, especially considering that you really don't need to be desperate, If you found yourself in a position that is not healthy, that is dysfunctional, that is abusive, that is this, that, and the other, by all means, get the fuck out. I mean, and I understand that some people are like, well, they can't. What if they can't, I understand. Start talking to people. Open up your mouth and start talking to people. It doesn't matter if it's a job or if it's whatever it is, right? Desperation is desperation. And if you live from a place of desperation, you're going to attract people, situations, dynamics that are not healthy and that are very unbalanced.